Good evening, this is Julian Barber. Senator William Proxmire said today he would oppose the Defense Department's new master plan for consolidation of its facilities in the Washington area. The plan would cut the number of defense facilities from 88 to 23, but Proxmire charged it would just lead to more waste.
The Pentagon proposal to spend $1.5 billion to consolidate the Pentagon buildings here in Washington is the rawest example I've seen of sheer waste. The Pentagon says because they have a reduction in our military forces, it's necessary to pull them together, and pull them together by spending $1.5 billion of the taxpayers' money. Now, buried within this is a brand new summer palace for the Pentagon at Bowling and Anacostia Field. This is opposed, I understand, by Delegate Fauntleroy, and I agree with him wholeheartedly. He's absolutely right. This is something that will not serve the interests of the people of Washington, and it certainly won't serve the interests of the American taxpayer. At a time when we're reducing our military forces by the hundreds of thousands, to expand the administrative headquarters here in Washington makes no sense whatsoever, and I'll do all I can to oppose it.
The Defense Department's master plan for consolidation was based on sort of a game in which teams of specialists represented the interests of the services and of the community. When it came to choosing which facilities the armed forces should keep and which it should leave, both teams seemed to want much the same thing. Both teams, for example, wanted the Defense Department to vacate Tempo 8, a temporary office structure dating back from World War II, still in use in Northwest Washington. The Army says it must use 1 million square feet of old World War II buildings, all of it badly in need of replacement and much incompatible with surrounding neighborhoods. The service and community teams recommended the Defense Department leave most of its lease space in Rosslyn, Virginia, as it should reduce the space it leases overall. The Defense Department says much of the space can be reassigned to other agencies. Some rental agents say they are not much worried about losing the services as tenants if they can replace them. The Navy wanted to keep its Naval Observatory on Massachusetts Avenue, but change its use. Admiral Zumwalt lives there now. The community team wanted to move the Navy out. In the consolidation game, both service and community teams agreed the Defense Department should leave most of its small facilities it uses around the city in order to decrease costs and increase efficiency. Central in the consolidation is development of new facilities at the Washington Navy Yard, and perhaps more important, the controversial new office building at Bowling Anacostia. There is significant opposition to that building in Congress, and resting full funding for the building will be no gain. Lloyd Siegel, News 4 Washington.
News 4 Friday is brought to you on WRC-TV with Julian Barber, Don Sarreals, Dan Daniels with a Redskins prediction, and Richard L. Coe from 14th and T Streets.
See the morning sun come racing alongside your window as you gently lift off from...
This year, start your vacation before you get there. On board an American Airlines luxury liner in our new coach lounge. Make some new friends. Have a little fun. Go fish.
Smile.
Hi, I'm Barney Hugger. Yes, you are.
Let's get out of here. I know a nice place on West 19th Street.
I love to shop.
So do I.
I love to shop more than anybody.
Well, you know,
I'll buy you a hat. How much?
What are you against?
You don't like me, do you?
Or
The coach lounge. If you're going where it's going, why fly any other airline?
I like it. Sweet.
American 747 luxury liner. The plane with no competition.
The only 747 to Los Angeles.
If life is passing you by because you're running out of gas, you should know about Arco Supreme Gasoline. It helps keep deposits that can cause cars to lose mileage from clogging the air passages of your engine. Arco Supreme Gasoline. You may only get a little more mileage, but sometimes a little more is enough.
Why do they always sing, "Oh, Fab, I'm glad"?
Because Fab with lemon freshened borax gives a deep down clean. And now Fab has all fabric brighteners, great for wash and wear and permanent press.
Are you glad about Fab, Mom?
What do you think?
Oh, they're always doing
to Fab, it's true. Oh, Fab, we're glad they added all fabric brighteners to the lemon freshen borax in you.
In case you haven't noticed, we'd like to perform our civic duty and warn you that Maryland is in the midst of a Japanese beetle infestation. They haven't reached science fiction size yet, but the little critters are out in great numbers, partly because of the suburban building boom.
We've also had, in the past decade, a lot of development in areas where farmland, pasture land, where Japanese beetles were very high. Now people have their homes on the Japanese beetles' homes, and they've built up in quite high populations on lawns as larvae. They're larvae under the ground. Then they emerge in the last part of July as adults, and the adults start eating the leaves of plants. Now, there are nearly 300 host plants that they can feed on that they like. And this is where we're seeing them now, in big infestations. They're sort of gregarious, too. They get together and chew on these leaves, so they're very noticeable.
What should people be doing to control the infestation?
Well, there are insecticides that people can spray on the plants around their house. Citizens groups also can get together and buy this milky spore disease, even buy the application of it, and put it on their lawns. This will control the larvae under the grass in the lawns. And when it controls it in a large area, then you don't have these adults coming out eating the plants.
Well, on the more positive side of nature, our streak of sunny days now stands at 2. Donald?
Right. I don't know how long it'll continue, but at least it'll continue for the weekend. That Apollo 15 splashdown weather is considered nominal. Visibility is going to be, around 10 miles. Winds no more than 17 miles per hour, and seas no higher than 4 feet. And our weekend weather is going to be super nominal with sunny skies throughout this weekend. Let's start off by checking our national weather satellite map. The big white cloud band that brought Tuesday's and Wednesday's showers have moved out to sea and is dissipating except over southwest Virginia and West Virginia. These lingering clouds will be gone by Saturday afternoon, allowing clear skies region-wide. Now, our high today here in Washington, 84 degrees with low humidity. Last night's low, a good sleeping 61 degrees, and will continue cool tonight before a slight warming trend over the weekend. On our national temperature map for tonight, across the mid-Atlantic region, temperatures will get down to the 50-degree mark over northern West Virginia and extreme western Maryland. The remainder of the northern and western portion of the area will be in the 50s. Elsewhere, overnight lows in the low to mid-60s. A large fair weather system centered in the Midwest is bringing our fair, cool weather. The system is large enough and moving slow enough to last through the weekend. That weather front to the south is generating clouds and showers, some of which are affecting southwest Virginia, but this will weaken during Saturday. Right now we're 80 degrees and sunny. The forecast for tonight, clear skies, a low again of 61 degrees in Washington, in the 50s in the nearby suburbs. The weather forecast for Saturday, sunny skies, high 85 in Washington, ranging from 78 to 82 along the beaches, 78 in the mountains, 86 in Richmond. And the weather forecast for Sunday, partly sunny skies with just a few billowy clouds and maybe some high stratus late in the day. Warmer with a high of 86 in Washington, 80 to 84 at the shore, 80 in the mountains, 87 at Richmond. So have a very pleasant weekend and drive carefully. You too, Julian.
Thank you, Donald, and you have a nice weekend. The Federal Trade Commission says some sheer printed scarves sold in the Washington area are dangerously flammable. The scarves are distributed by Marcus Brothers of Hialeah, Florida. They measure 15 by 42 inches and are marked with rows of black circles. They reportedly have been sold in a number of suburban drug and clothing stores. The Nixon administration today called for charges in the form of a pollution tax on those who spoil the air, water, and land of America. In its second annual report to Congress, the White House Council on Environmental Quality put a price tag on cleaning up the environment for the first time. The total was a whopping $105 billion over the next 6 years, and that breaks down to $525 for every man, woman, and child. The Council proposed coupling strict enforcement of tough anti-pollution laws with what it called effluent charges. In other words, a factory that puts smoke in the air or residue into the rivers and streams would pay for those discharges just as it pays for using gas or electricity. The Council says such pollution charges would create a positive incentive to accelerate pollution abatement efforts, since the less one polluted, the less he would have to pay the government. In a message to Congress which accompanied that report, President Nixon said, "We must recognize the goal of a cleaner environment will not be achieved by rhetoric or moral dedication alone. It will not be cheap or easy, and the cost will have to be borne by each citizen, consumer, and taxpayer."
Well, you know, after playing 9 innings real hot weather and you're perspiring freely, and being a big man of 6'8", 280 pounds, I need an antiperspirant that's going to help keep me dry. It's something that smells good and that will do the job. Brut 33 has done the job for me. I would think it'd be great for anybody else. Brut 33 antiperspirant. That's my number. I don't know. Maybe these people are trying to tell me something.
Brut 33 antiperspirant from Fabergé.
The jungle, a perfect place for insects to breed, and a perfect place to prove the effectiveness of Raid Yard Guard Fogger, the backyard fogger that's jungle tested. Yard Guard shoots up to 20 feet, clears bugs out in minutes, keeps them away for hours. It worked in their backyard, it'll work in yours. Clears bugs out in minutes, keeps them away for hours. Raid Yard Guard, it's jungle tested.
Well, summer means vacation time for almost everyone, including our senators and congressional representatives. So if you happen to be at National or Dulles airports or Union Station or on many of the highways leading out of town tonight, you're likely to see a congressman heading for home.
Well, Congress is very happy to have a one-month recess. It starts today. Members will be able to take vacations with their families, a rare treat indeed. They'll be able to see their children and live like ordinary human beings. But on the other hand, they leave town worried and upset, less about the war in Vietnam and the draft than about the economic situation, about unemployment and high prices and small businesses choked between higher costs and diminishing sales. And they know that when they get home, they're going to be asked a lot of questions that they can't answer or won't dare answer. On top of that, Congress has not approved revenue sharing or family assistance welfare or permanent legislation to handle critical strikes or a whole raft of other things. It has approved the creation of some new emergency jobs, and it has put through a more than usual number of appropriation bills for this time of year. But on the whole, its record is not one likely to impress the ordinary voter back home. So the air of jubilation that children feel when school closes is not apparent here. Robert McCormick, NBC News at the Capitol.
The government reported today that there were more jobs available to Americans during July, but there also were more people out of work. The unemployment rate stood at 5.8% for the month, meaning a total of 5,300,000 members of the working force were not working. This is still below the 6.2% jobless rate of several months ago, which was a 10-year high. President Nixon greeted this news as a good omen, but former presidential contender Hubert Humphrey says he sees no indication of economic recovery. In the Washington metropolitan area, the yearly unemployment figures were released. The figures mean that 50,700 people are jobless now, compared to 46,900 1 year ago. And now Warren Berry has a report on what looks like bad news for white-collar workers. Warren?
Thank you, Julian. You know, at least there was always one thing you could count on here in the Washington area, and that was that the government would go on hiring more and more people at higher and higher salaries. But all that is about to change. In fact, the White House today moved to clamp a lid on federal promotions. The President's budget director, George Shultz, has ordered all agencies to hold down white-collar salaries because there have been too many promotions. No one will be fired or reduced in grade, he says. But when someone leaves, he wants a new employee brought in at a lower salary level. As Shultz puts it, the President is very strong in this and said we have to stop this upward creep. I told the cabinet members I would be on their backs on this because the President is on my back. He'd better have a broad back because he's taking on 1.2 million white-collar workers. That's 40% of all in the country. What disturbs Shultz and many other conservative Nixon economists is that civil servants have enjoyed the best wage boost since 1962. That was the year that Congress decided it was about time they got as decent pay as private industry did. Since then, government wages have jumped 75%, and industry wages have only gone up 62%. And the federal figure doesn't even include fringe benefits. On top of this, another 6% boost is scheduled for next January, but Nixon's tightwads just might fight that one. What disturbs Schultz is that the average pay grade for a federal white-collar worker used to be at the GS 7.4 level. That was just 3 years ago. And last year, the average rose to 7.9 and now is believed to be about 8.1. The Wall Street Journal figures that this means an average civil servant now makes about $11,000 a year. In an analysis this week, the Journal stacked up the salaries of top bureaucrats, who were Schultz's targets today, against their counterparts in industry. The study found the government man was making $36,000 at the top, or about 2% more than the executive in private industry. At the lowest level, the secretary was making $6,619 compared to about $6,223 in a private firm. Schultz's objective is to save the government $175 million this year and the same next fiscal year. He doesn't have much time. Already, Mr. Nixon's salary is being doubled to $200,000, and some of those big business types in the cabinet are sure to start sending out their resumes if they don't get a raise one of these days soon. Warren Berry for NBC News.
There was a theatrical first in Washington last night. It happened in the street at 14th and T on the northwest side, and Richard L. Coe was there.
Here at 14th and T Street, it's first night for Esteban. Esteban being a play presented by the Street Theater of Washington. That is, the Workshop for the Creative Arts. That's the organization headed by Peggy Cooper and Mike Malone. This year, they are doing an updated street version of Shakespeare's Macbeth. You'll find that the witches have become fortune tellers, and they're singing some rock music. There's a good deal of dancing in this, and as the Macbeth himself said, he's improved Shakespeare by updating him.
My name is Dotson. These are my puppets you need. And thanks to those weary fortune tellers, my secret is out. The Dotson puppets are not puppets in the true sense. Although later when they perform for you, I'm sure you'll find them just as lifeless as the real thing. It is the only play. Real hip. I adapted it from... I can't remember the name. Only that the author, William... something or the other. If he could be here this evening to see what I've done with his play up here on 14th Street, he would be sick. Absolutely sick. With envy, I mean. Because I've updated it, which means I improved it.
Marion, what do you think of all this?
Well, I think we are here at 14th and T, which is generally considered the heart of, I guess, the ghetto in terms of the black community. And a lot of people, they have never seen any kind of acting at all in terms of the kind of theater that I've seen here, and it's bringing a message. So I think that that's a great thing. A lot of guys themselves are natural actors, and so I think it gives them an opportunity to see that there are other things that they can do, and it's right here where everybody is, and I think it's a great
and don't you think, too, the rehearsal time that it's taken would have been a good thing for everybody, learning the discipline of getting a show ready?
Yeah, I think what has happened is that they put on a show here which is under the most difficult situations. You're out on the street, number one, so the acoustics are not there, but it's a real live. I think that probably what's happening, though, some of the people don't understand the plot and don't understand what's going on, because that's kind of deep.
Well, you can't blame them for that,
But I think the idea, though, is really hip, you know, and I think that we ought to encourage other people like Peggy Cooper and others to do more this kind of thing because it involves the people.
Under the sponsorship of the Kennedy Center, this group will be touring the streets of Washington for the next 5 weeks. You'll find them most anywhere along about dusk, 6:30, around in there. The streets themselves will be closed, and you'll find people roaming around just gawking and looking. It's an odd way to do theater, but there was a lot of theater like this in the Middle Ages. This has been Richard L. Coe, News 4, Washington.
Eterna 27? I'd be afraid to stop.
Eterna 27 Night Cream by Revlon. Thousands of women wouldn't give it up for even one night.
It makes such a difference in the way their skin looks. Eterna 27 has no hormones. It contains progenitin, an ingredient patented for Revlon alone. For most women, Eterna 27 is the only night beauty treatment needed.
Now at Woodward and Lothrop, a special chance to try Revlon's Eterna 27, a $15 value for $10.
The President Cleveland, home for a cleanup. These men can't waste time with stubborn dirt. That's why they use industrial strength janitor in a drum. The same industrial strength cleaner you can use at home to cut cleaning down to size. Tough enough for a playroom floor, tame enough for a baby's high chair. Janitor in a drum from Texize. It does the work, not you.
One of America's most famous writers on Far Eastern subjects was in Washington today to talk about expanding her Help the Children program.
Pearl Buck, the writer, opened a drive today to help tens of thousands of Vietnamese children who've been abandoned by their GI fathers. She said they were especially pathetic because the U.S. government says that legally they do not exist.
These children are important because they are children without a country. They are legally Americans in Asia. I mean, the Asian people consider them American. And of course, with us, we don't. We feel that they belong there. Nevertheless, the fact is that they are people without a country. And of all the peoples of the earth during these troubled decades of war and change, they are the most pitiable because they don't have a country. I think they as many as possible should be adopted, but even so, we cannot hope for adoption for just a few. But I think of the children who have no future at all, who look American and are partly American, and I ask for them a chance in life.
Well, the pro football season is almost upon us. There are 11 exhibition games scheduled between tonight and Monday. One of them has the Redskins going against San Diego. And here's Dan Daniels with some thoughts on that one.
Julian, the first commissioner of the National Football League, the late Burt Bell, his successor, Pete Rozelle, and virtually everybody in the NFL officialdom would cringe at the use of the words exhibition games to describe what happens, say, tonight when New Orleans is at Buffalo and Dallas at Los Angeles, and tomorrow when Washington is at San Diego. These, they say, are preseason games. But let's face it, they are exhibitions to an extent. Veterans will be used sparingly. Rookies will be tested widely. As a matter of fact, of all the 60 players on the field tomorrow night in San Diego, only 1 out of 3 will be lost, or at least only 2 out of 3 remain. Because of the 60 that start the exhibition games, only 40 are around when the regular season starts. Bell and the others object to the word exhibition games because they felt it connoted a lack of enthusiasm or action. There is, of course, much zest from those who are trying not to be the 1/3 to be cut. On offense, this year the Redskins will not vary greatly from last year. Be a change or 2 in the offensive line, running backs and the quarterbacks and the receivers a change with Roy Jefferson added. On defense, that's where George Allen has wrought most of his innovation. 6 of the 11, as we look at it right now, will be changed. 3 new rush linemen, Biggs, McDowell, and Talbert. A couple of new linebackers, probably, Pardee and Partios. Some changes in the secondary, particularly when he gets a good look at Mike Gector and when Richie Pettibone reports. Tomorrow night, the odds makers say San Diego by 3. It was 1 until Sonny Jurgensen banged up his thumb. George Allen makes much of his record in 5 years with the Rams. He did not lose a preseason exhibition game, neither did he lose a first game of the regular season. So tradition has to prevail in something, and we'll pick the Redskins tomorrow night. If it doesn't work out that way, Maury Siegel returns Monday.
Thanks, Dan. NBC Television and Radio will cover the splashdown of Apollo 15 at 4 p.m. tomorrow, and because of that special coverage, the NBC game of the week starting at 1 o'clock instead of the normal 2 o'clock. There was no afternoon baseball, but there are 11 games tonight, including the Indians against the Senators at RFK Stadium. And if you're older than 14, female, and want to wear a pair of hot pants to a baseball game, Denny McLean and the Senators invite you to a special Hot Pants Day on Sunday. All women fitting the description I just gave will be admitted to the stadium free on Sunday, and after the game, there will be a contest to select winners in various hot pants categories. And our own James Vance, who has an eye for such things, will be among the judges for that one. Now, this is Julian Barber wishing all of you a fine weekend and inviting you to join us again Monday at this time when we'll have news for another week. Good night.